In a land where the sun never sets for months, then disappears entirely, where glaciers carve through mountains like ancient sculptors, and waterfalls plunge from heights that defy comprehension, Norway doesn't just showcase nature's power, it reveals nature's artistry in its most dramatic form. This is a country where every fjord tells a story written in stone and ice over millions of years, where the aurora borealis paints the winter sky in colors that cameras struggle to capture, and where Viking heritage stands carved into landscapes so pristine they seem untouched by time itself. From the razor-sharp peaks of the Lofoten Islands rising directly from Arctic waters, to the otherworldly rock formations that balance impossibly on cliff tops, Norway presents a visual symphony that shifts from pastoral valleys dotted with red wooden churches, to ice-blue glaciers that crack and groan with the weight of centuries. This isn't just another Scandinavian destination, this is Earth's masterpiece theater, where geology, climate, and human ingenuity have collaborated to create scenes so breathtaking they border on the surreal. Prepare yourself for a journey through 12 wonders that will redefine everything you thought you knew about natural beauty, architectural harmony, and the raw, untamed power of the Nordic landscape. Number 12. The Lofoten Islands. Rising from the Norwegian Sea like jagged dragon's teeth, the Lofoten Islands create one of the most dramatic archipelagos on Earth. These islands don't gradually emerge from the water, they explode upward in sheer granite walls that climb straight from sea level to peaks exceeding 1,100 meters, creating a skyline so sharp and severe it looks like nature's own Gothic cathedral. What makes Lofoten truly extraordinary isn't just the visual impact of these towering peaks reflected in crystal-clear Arctic waters, but the way light behaves in this northern latitude. During the polar night from December to January, the islands exist in a twilight world where deep blues and purples dominate the landscape, broken only by the warm golden glow from fishing village windows scattered along the shoreline. Then, during the midnight sun season from May to July, the granite faces glow in perpetual golden hour light, creating photograph opportunities that seem almost supernatural. The contrast between the harsh vertical landscape and the delicate wooden fishing huts called rorbuer creates a visual poetry unique to northern Norway. These traditional red cabins, originally built on stilts over the water for fishermen, now dot the shoreline like scattered rubies against the dramatic backdrop. In the village of Nærøyfjord, these 120-year-old buildings remain virtually unchanged, creating a living museum where traditional life continues against one of the world's most spectacular backdrops. The geological story of Lofoten spans 3.5 billion years, making these some of the oldest rocks on Earth. The mountains were carved by glacial action during multiple ice ages, creating the sharp peaks and deep valleys that define the landscape today. The result is an ecosystem where Arctic and temperate species coexist, where you can find both reindeer grazing on tundra vegetation and seabirds nesting on vertical cliff faces just meters above the warming Gulf Stream waters. From the fishing village of Reyna, with its picture-perfect reflection in the sheltered harbor, to the dramatic beach at Kvalvika where golden sand meets towering peaks, Lofoten offers a concentration of natural drama that feels almost excessive, as if nature decided to showcase every spectacular landscape feature in one relatively small archipelago. Number 11. Geirangerfjord. Carved by glacial ice over millions of years, Geirangerfjord represents fjord landscape in its most perfected form. A 15-kilometer stretch of emerald water flanked by vertical walls that rise 1,400 meters straight from the water's surface. This isn't simply a beautiful inlet, it's a geological masterpiece that demonstrates the raw sculptural power of ice and time working in perfect harmony. The fjord's fame comes not just from its dramatic proportions, but from the spectacular waterfalls that cascade down its cliff faces like silver ribbons against dark rock. The Seven Sisters waterfall plunges 410 meters in 7 distinct streams, each one catching light differently as it falls, creating a constantly changing display of water and mist. Across the fjord, the Suder waterfall appears to lean toward the Seven Sisters, creating the romantic legend that gives these falls their names. But the most dramatic is Bridal Veil Falls, which drops 315 meters in a delicate cascade that becomes almost ethereal when backlit by morning sun. What makes Geirangerfjord extraordinary beyond its visual impact is how it reveals the power of glacial carving. The fjord's U-shaped profile with its steep sides and relatively flat bottom tells the story of massive ice sheets that once filled this valley, grinding and sculpting the bedrock with inexorable patience. The hanging valleys visible along the fjord walls show where tributary glaciers once joined the main ice flow, now left suspended high above the water when the ice retreated. The village of Geiranger, nestled at the fjord's head, provides perfect human scale against this immense landscape. With just 250 permanent residents, the village demonstrates how Norwegian communities have learned to thrive in landscapes that seem to dwarf human presence. The winding Orneveien, or Eagle's Road, that climbs from the village offers 11 hairpin turns that provide increasingly spectacular viewpoints, culminating at Ornesvingen, where the entire fjord spreads below like a detailed map rendered in 3 dimensions. From the water level, traveling by boat through Geirangerfjord feels like navigating through a cathedral designed by geological forces. The walls rise so steeply that they seem to close overhead, while waterfalls provide a constant soundtrack of falling water, echoing off stone surfaces, polished smooth by centuries of ice. Number 10. Preikestolen, also known as Pulpit Rock. Standing at the edge of Preikestolen is like, well, occupying the observation deck of a skyscraper that has no building beneath it, just over 600 meters of vertical drop to the Nærøyfjord below. This massive cliff formation doesn't gradually slope toward the water, instead it ends abruptly in a flat platform that's roughly 25 by 25 meters, creating honestly one of the most dramatic viewpoints accessible to hikers anywhere in the world. The geological story behind Pulpit Rock reveals the incredible forces that shaped Norway's landscape. This flat-topped cliff was formed through a process called freeze-thaw weathering over thousands of years. Water seeped into cracks in the granite, froze during harsh winters, expanded and gradually split the rock along natural fracture lines. The result is a cliff face so perfectly vertical it appears to have been cut by an enormous saw, while the viewing platform on top remains remarkably level despite its precarious position. What makes Preikestolen particularly striking is how it demonstrates the sheer scale of the Norwegian landscape. The Nærøyfjord stretching below appears as a narrow ribbon of blue water, while hikers standing on the rock platform look like tiny figures against the immense granite face. This perspective shift, from feeling large and significant during the hike to feeling utterly dwarfed by the landscape, creates an emotional impact that goes far beyond simple sightseeing. The approach to Pulpit Rock through the Rogaland countryside reveals another dimension of Norwegian beauty. The trail winds through terrain that shifts from dense forest to exposed granite slabs, past mountain lakes that perfectly mirror the surrounding peaks. Wooden bridges cross streams and wetlands where Arctic plants thrive in the cool, humid climate created by the proximity to the fjord below. The cultural significance of Preikestolen has grown tremendously in recent years, but not just as a tourist destination. It has become a symbol of human relationship with extreme landscapes, a place where visitors confront both the beauty and the danger inherent in Norway's natural environment. The flat platform provides safety and accessibility to experience landscape drama that would otherwise require technical climbing skills, making this extraordinary viewpoint available to anyone willing to undertake the moderate but rewarding hike. Standing on Pulpit Rock as evening light turns the granite walls golden and the fjord water deep blue, visitors experience what might be the most dramatic accessible viewpoint in Scandinavia, a place where geological time and human time intersect at the edge of a precipice. Number 9. Northern Lights, or the Aurora Borealis. Between September and March, when darkness returns to northern Norway after months of midnight sun, the sky becomes a canvas for one of Earth's most spectacular natural phenomena. The Aurora Borealis transforms the polar night into a living light show where curtains of green, purple and occasionally red light dance across the star-filled sky with an otherworldly grace that, honestly, no photograph can fully capture. The science behind the northern lights reads like something from a fantasy novel, but it's grounded in the very real interaction between our planet's magnetic field and charged particles streaming from the sun. When solar wind carrying electrically charged particles collides with Earth's magnetosphere, these particles are channeled toward the magnetic poles where they interact with atmospheric gases. Oxygen produces the characteristic green light at lower altitudes and rare red displays higher up, while nitrogen creates blue and purple hues that ripple through the aurora like watercolors bleeding across wet paper. What makes experiencing the aurora in northern Norway particularly magical is the landscape backdrop it illuminates. Unlike viewing northern lights from flat prairie or open ocean, Norway's mountains, fjords, and islands create silhouettes that frame and reflect the dancing lights. The aurora, reflecting off snow-covered peaks or the still water of a fjord, doubles the visual impact, creating mirror images that seem to extend the light show into multiple dimensions. The Lofoten Islands provide perhaps the most dramatic aurora viewing in the world, where the lights dance over jagged peaks rising directly from dark water. The combination of vertical landscape drama and horizontal light displays creates scenes of almost overwhelming beauty. Traditional red Rorbur fishing huts in the foreground, illuminated by warm interior light, provide perfect human-scale elements against both the towering mountains and the cosmic light show overhead. Tromsø, located 350 kilometers north of the Arctic Circle, has earned its reputation as the Northern Lights capital, partly due to its position directly beneath the auroral oval, the ring-shaped zone around the magnetic pole where aurora activity is most frequent. But it's the cultural infrastructure that makes Tromsø special. Glass igloos, aurora camps, and specialized tours that combine Sami cultural experiences with optimal aurora viewing. The unpredictability of the aurora adds to its magic. Even with advanced solar weather forecasting, each display is unique, sometimes appearing as a faint green glow on the horizon, other times exploding across the entire sky in waves of color that pulse and flow like a visual symphony. The silence that accompanies most aurora displays, broken only by the crunch of snow underfoot or the distant sound of Arctic wind, creates an experience that feels both intimate and cosmic. Number 8. Borgen Stave Church. Rising from the Lærdal Valley like a wooden pagoda transported from another world, Borgen Stave Church represents medieval architecture at its most distinctive and beautiful. Built around 1180, this perfectly preserved stave church doesn't just showcase Norwegian craftsmanship, it reveals a unique architectural solution to building in a landscape defined by abundant timber, harsh weather, and the need to create sacred spaces that could withstand centuries of use. The most striking feature of Borgen is its layered roofline, which cascades down in progressively smaller tiers, each one covered in wooden shingles that have weathered to a rich silver gray. Dragon heads carved from wood crown the roof ridges, creating a silhouette that seems to blend Norse mythology with Christian symbolism. These aren't mere decorations. They represent the complex cultural transition that occurred when Christianity arrived in pagan Scandinavia, creating a unique architectural language that exists nowhere else in the world. The structural engineering of stave churches represents medieval innovation at its finest. The vertical posts or staves that give these churches their name are positioned on stone foundations that lift the wooden structure above ground moisture, while the complex interlocking joints allow the entire building to flex with wind and settling without requiring nails or metal fasteners. The result is architecture that has survived over 800 years in one of Europe's harshest climates, testament to both the skill of medieval craftsmen and the suitability of their design to local conditions. Inside Borgen, the soaring space feels surprisingly large given the church's modest exterior footprint. Wooden columns carved with intricate vine patterns support the roof structure, while the interplay of light filtering through small windows creates an atmosphere of intimate grandeur. The smell of aged wood and the acoustic properties of the all-timber construction create a sensory experience that immediately transports visitors to medieval Norway. What makes Borgen particularly significant is its completeness. Unlike many stave churches that have been modified or partially rebuilt over the centuries, Borgen remains essentially unchanged from its 12th century form. This authenticity allows visitors to experience medieval sacred architecture exactly as it was conceived, without the interpretive layers that accumulate over time. The setting of Borgen in the narrow Lærdal Valley, surrounded by steep mountains and traditional Norwegian farms, demonstrates how these churches were designed to harmonize with their landscape rather than dominate it. The wooden structure seems to grow from the valley floor like an ancient tree, its organic materials and earth-tone colors blending naturally with the surrounding forest and stone. Number 7. Trolltunga. Jutting horizontally from a cliff face 1,100 meters above Lake Ringedalsvatnet, Trolltunga appears to defy both gravity and common sense. This thin wedge of rock extends 700 meters from the mountain wall like an enormous diving board suspended over one of Norway's most dramatic alpine valleys, creating what may be the most photogenic and heart-stopping viewpoint in Scandinavia. The formation of Trolltunga demonstrates geological processes working on an almost incomprehensible timescale. During the last ice age, glacial ice filled the valley below to a depth that reached nearly to the current position of the rock outcrop. As the glacier moved through the valley, it carved away the softer rock around Trolltunga while the harder granite of the outcrop itself resisted erosion. When the ice finally retreated about 10,000 years ago, it left this spectacular cantilever of stone projecting into empty space. What makes Trolltunga extraordinary isn't just its dramatic position, but the journey required to reach it. The 28-kilometer round-trip hike through the Hardangervidda Plateau reveals multiple layers of Norwegian landscape, from the dense birch forests at the trailhead, through alpine meadows where reindeer graze in summer, to the exposed granite and windswept tundra surrounding the rock formation itself. This isn't a viewpoint you stumble upon. Reaching Trolltunga requires commitment, preparation, and respect for mountain weather that can change from calm sunshine to dangerous conditions within minutes. The approach to Trolltunga builds anticipation through a carefully orchestrated reveal. The final section of trail winds around the cliff face, hiding the famous outcrop until hikers round the last corner and suddenly see the horizontal tongue of rock extending into space above the valley. The emotional impact of this moment, after hours of challenging hiking through increasingly dramatic terrain, creates an experience that goes far beyond simple sightseeing. Standing on Trolltunga provides a perspective on Norwegian landscape that few viewpoints can match. Lake Ringedalsvatnet lies 700 meters directly below, appearing as a narrow ribbon of blue water threading through the valley floor. The surrounding peaks of the Hardangervidda stretch to the horizon, revealing the true scale of Norway's mountain wilderness. Weather often creates a constantly changing show of clouds, mist, and shifting light that transforms the view throughout the day. The cultural phenomenon surrounding Trolltunga demonstrates how social media has transformed our relationship with extreme landscapes. The iconic photograph of a person standing alone on the rock outcrop has become one of the most recognizable images associated with Norwegian nature, attracting visitors from around the world who seek to create their own version of this dramatic scene. Number 6. Atlantic Road. The Atlantic Road doesn't simply connect mainland Norway to the island of Avarøya, it performs a feat of engineering poetry that turns a simple drive into one of the world's most spectacular coastal experiences. This 8.3-kilometer stretch of highway leaps from island to island via 8 bridges, each one creating a perfect vantage point for the raw power of the North Atlantic crashing against the rocky Norwegian coast. And just when you think it can't get better, wait until you see number 1. The engineering achievement of the Atlantic Road becomes most apparent during winter storms, when waves crash over the roadway itself, and drivers experience the raw power of North Atlantic weather from the questionable safety of their vehicles. The road was designed to handle these extreme conditions, with bridges built to flex with wind and wave action, rather than resist them rigidly. The result is infrastructure that works with natural forces rather than against them, creating a highway that feels like it's dancing with the ocean, rather than simply crossing it. The most famous section is the Storseisundet Bridge, which creates an optical illusion that makes it appear to launch cars directly into the sky. The bridge's curved design, and the way it's positioned relative to the surrounding landscape, create a perspective trick that has made it one of the most photographed pieces of infrastructure in Norway. From certain angles, the bridge appears to end abruptly in mid-air, creating a visual impossibility that photographers and filmmakers have used to dramatic effect. What makes the Atlantic Road particularly stunning is how it reveals the relationship between human engineering and coastal landscape. Each bridge provides a slightly different perspective on the archipelago, from intimate views of fishing boats sheltered in natural harbors, to expansive vistas of open ocean stretching toward the horizon. The road demonstrates how thoughtful infrastructure can enhance rather than diminish natural beauty. The seasonal transformations along the Atlantic Road create completely different experiences throughout the year. Summer brings midnight sun that turns the surrounding islands golden, while winter storms create waves that can reach heights of 15 meters, occasionally making the road temporarily impassable. Spring and autumn provide the most dramatic weather, when rapidly changing conditions create scenes of constant visual transformation. If this journey has already left you breathless, hit that subscribe button, we're only halfway through. Jostedalsbreen spans 487 square kilometers of the Jotunheimen mountain range, making it mainland Europe's largest glacier and, honestly, a living laboratory for understanding how ice shapes the landscape over geological time. This isn't just a remnant of the last ice age, it's an active, dynamic ice field that continues to carve valleys, transport rock, and create the dramatic topography that really defines this region of western Norway. The glacier reveals itself through dozens of outlet tongues that flow down from the main ice field into the surrounding valleys, each one creating its own microclimate and ecosystem. Nygårdsbreen, one of the most accessible arms, allows visitors to walk directly onto thousand-year-old ice that glows with an ethereal blue light created by compressed ice crystals. The surface of the glacier is a constantly changing landscape of crevasses, ice falls, and seracs that demonstrate the dynamic nature of glacial ice as it responds to gravity, temperature, and seasonal snowfall. What makes Jostedalsbreen particularly significant is its role as a climate indicator. The glacier has been advancing and retreating for centuries in response to temperature and precipitation changes, creating detailed records preserved in the landscape itself. Moraines, ridges of rock debris pushed ahead of advancing ice, mark the positions of past glacier margins, while polished bedrock surfaces show where ice has recently retreated, leaving behind landscapes so fresh they appear newly minted. The ecosystem around Jostedalsbreen demonstrates how glacial environments create unique biological communities. Glacial flour, finely ground rock suspended in meltwater, turns rivers and lakes a distinctive turquoise color while supporting specialized plant communities adapted to nutrient-poor conditions. Pioneer plants like purple saxifrage and Arctic willow colonize recently deglaciated areas, beginning the process of soil formation that will eventually support more complex plant communities. The cultural significance of Jostedalsbreen extends back centuries, when local communities developed specialized knowledge and techniques for traveling safely on glacial ice. Modern glacier guiding in Norway draws on this traditional knowledge, combining ancient route-finding skills with contemporary safety equipment to provide access to one of Europe's most spectacular glacial landscapes. Standing on the glacier surface, surrounded by peaks that rise directly from the ice field, visitors experience landscape formation in real time. The sounds of moving ice, creaking, grinding, and occasionally cracking as the glacier adjusts to stress, provide a soundtrack that really emphasizes the dynamic nature of what might appear to be a static landscape. The Flam Railway accomplishes what should be impossible. It carries passengers 863 meters up the side of a mountain in just 20 kilometers, creating what UNESCO has called one of the world's steepest train rides while, at the same time, providing access to some of Norway's most spectacular alpine scenery. This isn't simply transportation, it's a carefully orchestrated journey through multiple climate zones and landscape types that reveals the vertical diversity of Norwegian geography. The engineering achievement of the Flam Railway becomes apparent in its statistics. Gradients reach 5.5%, requiring specialized braking systems and rail construction techniques developed specifically for this extreme terrain. 20 tunnels, including several that spiral inside the mountain to gain elevation gradually, demonstrate the determination required to create rail access through landscape that seems determined to resist human passage. The construction, completed in 1940, required 20 years of dangerous work in conditions that claimed several lives among the engineers and workers who carved this railway from solid rock. What transforms the Flam Railway from an engineering curiosity into a profound landscape experience is the carefully chosen route through the Flam Valley. The train begins at sea level, in the sheltered fjord environment of Flam Village, where deciduous trees and cultivated fields create a surprisingly gentle landscape. As elevation increases, passengers pass through distinct vegetation zones, from temperate forest to alpine meadows to the exposed rock and snow fields near the top station at Myrdal. The journey's most dramatic moment comes at Kjosfossen waterfall, where the train makes a scheduled stop to allow passengers to walk to a viewing platform just meters from the 93-meter cascade. The combination of thundering water, mist that creates rainbows in sunshine, and the scale of the surrounding mountains creates an experience that really demonstrates the raw power of glacial meltwater carving through ancient bedrock. The seasonal transformations visible from the Flam Railway windows create completely different experiences throughout the year. Summer journeys reveal waterfalls at peak flow, alpine meadows filled with wildflowers, and snow patches that persist year-round on north-facing slopes. Winter trips showcase a landscape transformed by snow and ice, where waterfalls become frozen sculptures and the valley takes on a pristine, crystalline beauty. From the top station at Myrdal, connecting to the Bergen Railway, passengers gain access to the Hardangervidda Plateau, Europe's largest mountain plateau. demonstrating how the Flam Railway serves not just as a tourist attraction, but as genuine transportation infrastructure that connects coastal fjord communities with Norway's high mountain interior. Senja Island presents Norwegian landscape in concentrated form, a 1,600 square kilometer island that contains virtually every type of scenery that makes Norway spectacular, from dramatic peaks that rise directly from Arctic waters to pristine beaches with sand so white it seems imported from tropical latitudes. This isn't just Norway's second largest island, it's a complete landscape laboratory where visitors can experience the full range of Nordic coastal environments without traveling thousands of kilometers. The western coast of Senja creates what locals call Norway in miniature. Jagged peaks like Segla and Heston rise over 600 meters straight from the sea, creating a dramatic skyline that rivals the Lofoten Islands but with far fewer visitors. The peaks are composed of ancient granite and gneiss that has been carved by glacial action into impossibly sharp ridges and knife-edge summits. The interplay between these vertical mountain faces and the horizontal expanse of the Norwegian Sea creates a landscape tension that produces some of the most photographed scenery in northern Norway. What makes Senja particularly remarkable is its diversity of coastal environments within a relatively small area. The beach at Geirangerfjord features fine white sand backed by peaks that seem to lean over the shoreline, creating a scene that really challenges every preconception about Arctic landscape. The contrast between white sand, turquoise water warmed by the Gulf Stream, and snow-capped peaks creates visual combinations that seem almost impossible, like discovering a Caribbean beach at 69 degrees north latitude. The northern coast of Senja faces directly into the path of winter storms from the Arctic Ocean, creating wave action that has carved sea cliffs, natural arches, and isolated sea stacks that demonstrate the erosive power of salt water and wind working over geological time. The village of Geirangerfjord provides front-row seats to this ongoing geological theater, where residents live with the constant sound and sight of waves attacking ancient rock formations. The cultural landscape of Senja reveals how Norwegian coastal communities have adapted to extreme geography over centuries. Traditional fishing villages like Hamn are built in the few protected coves where boats can be safely harbored, while summer fishing camps called Vega demonstrate seasonal adaptation to the rhythm of Arctic seasons. The contrast between these modest human settlements and the overwhelming scale of the surrounding landscape creates a visual narrative about persistence and adaptation in one of Europe's most challenging environments. Senja's position north of the Arctic Circle means it experiences both midnight sun and polar night, seasonal extremes that transform the island's character completely. Summer brings 24-hour daylight that turns the granite peaks golden and creates photography opportunities that seem to last forever, while winter darkness provides ideal conditions for northern lights displays over dramatic mountain silhouettes. From the windswept summit of Dalsnibba, 1,476 meters above sea level, Geirangerfjord spreads below like a detailed architectural model of Earth's most perfect landscape. This viewpoint doesn't just provide a high perspective on the fjord, it offers a godlike vantage point that reveals the complete geographical story of how ice, water, and stone collaborated over millions of years to create what may be the most beautiful landscape on our planet. The drive to Dalsnibba via the Nibbavai mountain road is itself a journey through multiple climate zones and landscape types. Beginning at sea level in Geiranger village, the road winds through 11 hairpin turns that gain elevation so rapidly that passengers experience distinct changes in vegetation, temperature, and atmospheric pressure. Dense deciduous forest gives way to alpine meadows, then to exposed granite and permanent snowfields that exist year-round despite Norway's temperate latitude. From the Dalsnibba viewing platform, the entire Geirangerfjord system becomes comprehensible as a single geological masterpiece. The main fjord extends 15 kilometers from the viewing point to its mouth at the Sognefjord, while tributary valleys branch off like the ribs of an enormous skeleton. The S-curve of the main fjord creates constantly changing perspectives as the eye follows the water toward the horizon, while the surrounding peaks, many still crowned with glaciers, demonstrate the active geological processes that continue to shape this landscape. The waterfalls visible from Dalsnibba take on entirely new meaning when viewed from this elevation. The Seven Sisters, Bridal Veil, and Suder Falls appear as delicate silver threads against the dark cliff faces, yet their scale becomes apparent when compared to the cruise ships that look like bath toys on the fjord surface, 1,476 meters below. This perspective shift, From feeling small when viewing the falls from water level, to seeing them as small details in a vast landscape composition, creates an emotional experience that redefines understanding of scale and beauty. What makes the view from Dalsnibba truly extraordinary is how it reveals the relationship between all the elements that make Geirangerfjord spectacular. The interplay between vertical cliff faces and horizontal water surface, the way waterfalls create movement and sound in what might otherwise be a static landscape, and the manner in which changing light transforms the scene throughout the day, all become visible from this elevated perspective. The seasonal changes visible from Dalsnibba create completely different landscape experiences. Summer brings 24-hour daylight that turns the fjord golden during midnight sun hours, while winter often fills the fjord with low clouds that leave only the highest peaks visible above a sea of white. Spring provides maximum waterfall flow and the most dramatic weather, while autumn creates conditions where entire weather systems can be observed moving through the valley system below. Standing on Dalsnibba as evening light turns the granite cliffs gold and the fjord water deep blue, with waterfalls catching the last sunlight like scattered diamonds, visitors experience what may be the most beautiful landscape viewpoint accessible anywhere on Earth. This is Norway distilled to its essential elements: ice, stone, water, and light combined in proportions that seem calculated to overwhelm human comprehension of natural beauty. From the jagged peaks of Lofoten rising directly from Arctic waters to the impossible horizontal projection of Trolltunga, from the medieval craftsmanship of Borgen Stave Church to the living ice of Jostedalsbreen Glacier, Norway doesn't just showcase natural beauty, it redefines what natural beauty can be. This is a country where every landscape element seems designed to exceed expectation, where the aurora borealis dances over mountain peaks that shouldn't exist, and where waterfalls fall from heights that challenge comprehension into fjords carved by forces that dwarf human imagination. What emerges from this journey through 12 of Norway's most spectacular wonders is a portrait of a nation where geology, climate, and culture have collaborated to create experiences that border on the impossible. These aren't just beautiful places, they're landscapes that reveal Earth's capacity for artistry on a scale that makes human creativity seem modest by comparison. From the engineering poetry of the Atlantic Road dancing with North Atlantic storms, to the vertical drama of Preikestolen suspended over Lofoten, Norway presents a masterclass in how natural forces can create beauty that transcends simple scenic appreciation. The cultural thread that connects these wonders, from stave churches that blend seamlessly with forest landscapes to fishing villages that exist in harmony with overwhelming topography, demonstrates how human communities can enhance rather than diminish natural beauty when they approach landscape with respect, creativity, and long-term thinking. Norway's greatest achievement may be showing how civilization and wilderness can coexist not just sustainably, but in ways that make both more beautiful than either could be alone. If this journey amazed you, subscribe and share it with someone who loves discovery. Some places you visit, others stay with you forever. Until the next destination, stay curious.